This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
AI had the time of my life. AI never felt this way before.
From building timelines to assigning the right people and even spotting risks across dozens of projects, Monday Sidekick knows your business, thinks ahead, and takes action. One click on the star and consider it done.
And I owe it all to you.
Try Monday Sidekick. AI you'll love to use on Monday.com.
Welcome back to another episode of Investies. I'm your host, Linda Garcia, Texas State Representative and author of the book Wealth Warrior. This week on the podcast, we have a special audio that was taken from a workshop I presented over on Patreon on the topic tax loss harvesting. We are at the start of Q4, and this is the perfect time to review your portfolio and decide whether or not tax loss harvesting is a good strategy for you to execute this year. If you would like to watch the video component to the audio that you will be listening to today, which includes the slides on the presentation, you can head over to patreon.com/investies and click on the exchange tier. And now here is our workshop on tax loss harvesting. Welcome to the exchange. Today we're going to be covering tax loss harvesting, turning losses into tax savings and strategies for investors to reduce tax liability. So we're going to kick this off first by going over what tax loss harvesting even means. Tax loss harvesting simply means selling investments at a loss to offset any gains or income that we may be bringing in. The goal here is just to simply reduce taxable income and improve after-tax returns. So I'm going to kick it back to Wealth Warrior really quick. We're going to deviate from tax loss harvesting, and we're going to cover a couple of things that I just want you all to have a refresher on. If you're already familiar with this, or if you're new, then I want you to have context as to what we are going to dive in on. This is from Wealth Warrior, the course. Capital gains. What are capital gains? Capital gains are defined as the profit earned on the sale of an asset that has increased in value over the holding period. In other words, this just means that a capital gain is a realized gain, a share that was sold and profit was made. It's important for us to note that a capital gain is not the same as an unrealized gain. It is a realized gain. So the difference between an unrealized gain and a realized gain is that unrealized means that we still have not sold the shares and made either our gain or our loss real. So it is, so to speak, unreal. It lives in our portfolio. It means that today it could be an unrealized gain. Tomorrow it can be an unrealized loss. When we sell the shares and we have a concrete loss or a concrete gain, then it is realized. I also want to go over taxes on capital gains. This is also from Wealth Warrior, the course. There is a difference between short-term capital gains and long-term capital gains. Short-term is the tax on profits from the sale of shares that were held for less than a year. This means that if you have an investment that you have held for less than 12 months, and you sell it, you realize your gains or you realize your loss, then it is a short-term investment. And short-term investments have a different tax rate than a long-term investment. The tax rate is going to be the same as your earned income, tax bracket, and filing status. All right, so long-term is the tax on profits from the sale of shares that were held for longer than 1 year. So if you've held a investment for a year or longer, then you will get hit with long-term taxes, which is actually much better than the taxes that you pay on a short-term investment. How much you get taxed will depend on your earned income and your tax bracket filing status. But again, it's going to be significantly less, I would say, than a short-term investment that is taxed like earned income. This is why I am such an advocate on investing, because the taxes we pay on investing are significantly different than the taxes we pay on earned income and short-term capital gains, which is also why it's important to become a long-term investor. All right, so now we're going to get back into our tax loss harvesting explanation here. I'm going to set up a scene for us so that everything is easier for us to grasp as we move through this explanation. We are going to invest $20,000 into the stock market. We have identified 2 companies that we want to invest in. The first company is ABC Company. We're going to go ahead and take half of the money that we have to invest, $10,000, and we're going to buy shares with those $10,000 of ABC Company. The second investment that we're going to make is XYZ Company, and we're going to take the remaining $10,000 and purchase shares into this publicly traded company. Unfortunately, our ABC investment was terrible, and our investment has decreased by 50%. This means that we have an unrealized loss of $5,000. And right now, as it stands, the current value of our ABC Company investment, unfortunately, is only $5,000. In our other company, XYZ, we invested the $10,000. We have an increase, a return on our investment of 75%. This means that as it stands, we have an unrealized gain of $7,500. What an incredible investment. Yay, that's awesome. The value of this investment, including our initial investment, is $17,500. So that is our current scenario. This is what we're working with. Now let's get into the 4 parts of tax harvesting. So tax harvesting has 4 separate parts, and we're going to work with the portfolio that we have in unpacking those first parts. The first thing about tax loss harvesting is that you have to sell an asset at a loss in order to use the loss to offset any capital gains. Okay, you have to sell an asset. This means that you have to realize your gains. You cannot just have unrealized gains and try to use that to apply to offset any capital gains that you have made. So the second part, as I just said, is the loss offsets any capital gains first. And I'll explain as we unpack this presentation what first actually means.
DSW, Designer Shoe Warehouse, is the one-stop shop for all your footwear needs. With sneakers, boots, and everything in between, for every style, mood, and occasion, you'll definitely find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. DSW has what you need, but more importantly, they have what you didn't even know you wanted. You never know what you'll find at DSW. Find the shoes that get you at prices that get your budget at DSW stores or dsw.com.
A Mochi moment from Sadie, who writes, I'm not crying, you're crying. This is what I said during my first appointment with my physician at Mochi. because I didn't have to convince him I needed a GLP-1. He understood, and I felt supported, not judged. I came for the weight loss and stayed for the empathy. Thanks, Sadie. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Sadie is a Mochi member compensated for her story.
So let's go back to our portfolio where we have an initial investment of $20,000. We have that $5,000 loss in ABC company, and we have that $7,500 gain in XYZ. We're going to go ahead and realize both the loss and the gain. So we realized the $5,000 loss for ABC company, and we realized the $7,500 gain from XYZ company. Now we're going to subtract the loss with the gain, and that is going to leave us with $2,500 as a realized gain. So those $5,000 that we lost in ABC have now offset the gains that we made from XYZ. This means that only $2,500 is what will be taxed, not the total amount of the realized gain of $7,500 from XYZ company. So we have a total initial investment of $20,000 plus our realized gain. That brings our portfolio cash balance to $22,500. It's important for us to understand that the $20,000 that we put into the initial investment is not taxable. That money has already been taxed from your earned income or wherever that money came from prior to you putting it in your portfolio. So the only thing that will get taxed from this investment is your realized gain of $2,500. Now let's go into parts 3 and parts 4 of tax loss harvesting. So part 3 is if losses are greater than your gains, you can offset up to $3,000 of ordinary income per year. Part 4 of this is any unused losses can be carried forward indefinitely. Let's go ahead and go back to our portfolio and unpack what parts 3 and part 4 mean to our portfolio. We have a different scenario, similar example. We have a total initial investment of $20,000. For ABC company, we have our initial investment of $10,000. ABC company has decreased 50%. We have a loss of $5,000 in ABC company, and we have a value of $5,000. The realized loss for ABC company is $5,000. Now we're going to go to XYZ company. And as I mentioned, the scenario here is going to be a bit different. We have an initial investment of $10,000. XYZ company has increased only 25%. We decide that we're going to go ahead and realize that gain, which comes to $2,500. And the total value of that investment is now $12,500. So we realized our gain of $2,500 in XYZ investment, and we have our realized loss in ABC investment. This means that the total realized loss for this investment is negative $2,500. We have a loss of $2,500. We had our initial investment of $20,000. With this realized loss, our portfolio cash balance is now $17,500. Nothing in this scenario will be taxed. There is nothing to tax. You had no realized gains. You had a loss. There's nothing to tax. Now, let's apply part 3 to this scenario. We had our realized loss of $2,500. We had already applied a portion to our capital gains, right? So now what we can do with these $2,500 is we can apply this loss to our earned income. Let's say that our earned income for the year is $100,000. When we apply our $2,500 realized loss to our earned income, that will now bring our taxable earned income to $97,500. So the only thing that can be taxed now, because we applied our realized loss to our earned income, is $97,500. Let me read part 3 again. If losses are greater than your gains, you can offset up to $3,000 of ordinary income per year. And just as a reminder, earned income means income that you worked for. Let's go ahead and apply part 4. As a reminder, part 4 is any unused losses can be carried forward indefinitely. So let's take a look at a scenario that could take place where our losses are carried forward indefinitely. Let's change the scenario of what our realized losses are. Let's say that in 2025, we had a realized loss of $8,000. Our earned income for 2025, the income that we bring in from our job, is $100,000. So we can take $3,000 of those $8,000 and apply it to our taxable income of $100,000, and that brings us to $97,000 of taxable income. This is assuming that you had no capital gains to apply this money towards. This was money that we are free and clear from, that is a loss that we can now apply towards earned income. We apply $3,000, we have $5,000 that we can now carry forward for the following year. 2026, we apply the carry forward loss. In 2026, our earned income is $100,000. Again, the max you can use for tax harvesting is on earned income is $3,000. So that brings our 2026 taxable income to $97,000. That now leaves us with $2,000 of a loss to carry forward for the following year of 2027. We can apply those $2,000 that we lost all the way back in 2025 to our earned income in 2027 of $100,000. Unfortunately, we haven't gotten a raise in 3 years. That sucks. We subtract the $2,000 from our $100,000, and our taxable income is now $98,000. Once again, this is part 4 of tax harvesting. Any unused losses can be carried forward indefinitely. This could go on and on and on if we had a massive loss, which I will say here, I wouldn't necessarily advocate for that. Ideally, I would want you to use those losses against capital gains, because I think it is more beneficial there than just chipping away at $3,000 on earned income. But at least your losses in the stock market don't just go in vain. You can apply them to capital gains and earned income. So just to review, tax loss harvesting is broken up into 4 parts. The first part is you must sell an asset at a loss. Second part is the loss offsets any capital gains first. Part 3, if losses are greater than your gains, you can offset up to $3,000 of ordinary income per year. Part 4, any unused losses can be carried forward indefinitely. A few takeaways that I want you to note here. Before I get into these takeaways, I don't want you to get overwhelmed, because I know this stuff can get really dense and it can be overwhelming. It's important for you to remember that you can come back to this video if you are watching on Patreon. If you are listening to the audio, you can come back and review this as many times as necessary. Sometimes, at least for me personally, it takes a few times for me to review something, especially if it's extremely dense, for it to click. I just kind of want to give you that warning because I don't want to lose you as we get into these takeaways that are important for you to understand if you are going to use tax loss harvesting as a strategy, which we all should. The first thing is short-term losses are netted against short-term gains first. This means that if we have a short-term loss, remember what a short-term loss is. It is an investment that is less than a year old. So anything under 12 months is a short-term loss. If you have a short-term gain and you realize your gain, your short-term loss will apply against your short-term gain first. Long-term losses offset long-term gains first. Same thing here as short-term. For your long-term investments, if you've realized the losses and you realize the gains, that is going to offset those gains first. That loss is going to offset those gains first. Short-term losses can be netted against long-term gains. Let me give you a couple scenarios here. Let's say that you have short-term gains and you also have long-term gains. Your short-term losses will be netted first against your short-term gains. If you have more than what needs to be netted against your short-term, you can use those losses and apply them to long-term gains. Let's say you don't have any short-term gains. All you have is short-term losses. You can use those short-term losses to be netted against long-term gains, and all of them can be used for long-term gains if there are no short-term gains first. Short-term losses can be netted against earned income. Let's say that you don't have any short-term gains or any long-term gains. Then your short-term losses can be netted against your earned income. So just to really quickly highlight, losses can be netted against earned income and do not require the sale of capital gains. Really important for us to understand. As you all know, this isn't a community for traders. We are long-term investors, and I do advocate for investing into a stock 12 months or more. You all know that ideally 5 to 10 years is a sweet spot, but if we could shoot for 20, 30 years, that's incredible. It's important for you to understand that if you're trading and you want to try to apply tax loss harvesting, you may impact your tax loss harvesting, and this may not apply to you. The restriction is you cannot trade in and out of the same stock within the 30 days. Please do your research on that if you are a trader. Moving on to the next set of takeaways. Selling losses first or earlier in the year gives you flexibility to realize gains later without increasing taxes. Here is where I can feel the density of this topic setting in on us. I'm going to explain this, and as a reminder, you can listen to this over again. Basically, what the note here is that I want you to take with you, this takeaway, is that when you sell your losses first, that will automatically help you not move into a different tax bracket. On the second point here, selling your gains first can sometimes trigger you into a higher tax bracket. And harvesting losses proactively helps soften that impact. That can't happen all the time. So let me give you an example of what the recommendation is if you want to take this strategy to the next level. You would identify your losses first and sell those, and then you would sell your gains. This just helps ensure that you will not be placed into a different tax bracket. If you were to sell your gains first, this can potentially put you into a higher tax bracket, so it can just help soften the impact. It's important for you to understand that selling must take place before December 31st. So this is a perfect time to start reviewing your portfolio. Everything needs to take place within the year that you are applying the tax loss harvest for. After December 31st, any losses or gains are part of next year, 2026. Also note that your brokers will provide a 1099. This is going to include your losses and your gains after the end of the year. Typically in late January, you will get your 1099. You take that to your accountant and they will figure out the tax loss harvesting for you. They will apply it. And then if you do have any carry forward losses, that's going to appear on next year's Schedule D. You do have to work in collaboration with your accountant. This is why I always advise or advocate, I should say, for folks to have an accountant and not try to DIY your taxes. The investment in an accountant is worth it and it pays for itself tenfold. So please always consult your tax advisor when wanting to apply any of these strategies. And that's the end of my presentation. So we will stop here. I can answer any questions that you may have. The questions don't necessarily have to pertain to the presentation today. As I mentioned, it can pertain to any questions you have about the stock market or the economy, etc. The questions for this presentation can be found exclusively on patreon.com/investies in our exchange tier. If you want to have more access to me and be able to engage in questions and with community, join us over on Patreon. New topics will be presented every month. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Investies. If you are loving the show and appreciating all of the effort that goes into bringing you these podcasts on a weekly basis, I would like to ask you to head over to Apple Podcasts and please rate and review the show. This is how we reach more listeners. We appreciate you. You're listening to Investies, a Cosmic Standard production. I'm your host, Linda Garcia. A special thank you to the team, Asia Simpson, Eliza Smith, and Jacob Winnick.
Every minute your finance team spends wrestling with data is a minute lost. Insight Software's AI-powered insights instantly move you from complexity to clarity. Automated analysis, real-time reporting, strategic recommendations, all at your fingertips. Transform how your finance team works and watch your business grow. Stop wasting time. Start making smarter decisions. Learn more at insightsoftware.com/AI.